Welcome, welcome. This is Gull, your money mindset expert. And guess what? We have a right treat for you. Someone I've been trying to get on the podcast for ages, literally a year now. And she's finally come here. So thank you so much for coming, Sandy.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
I'm super, super excited to be speaking to you. I'm having a fan moment because I've read her book and she's so amazing. But Sandy, before we go on, everyone's heard your intro, but in your own words, please tell everybody what it is that you do.
I am a money mindset mentor. I help women mainly to really rewire their mind and allow them to become attractive to abundance rather than chasing after money.
Fabulous, fabulous. And so this is right up my alley. And you're one of the people whose book I do have and I read and I thought, oh my God, it's so insightful and said in a way which is very, very simple. But it also gave me an idea that you've been through a journey which has allowed you to explain it in the way that you do, because there was so many similarities I could pick up. The reason why I talk the way I do, because I've lived it and then I'm able to explain it like A, B, and C. And that's what I found in your book when I was reading it. It was very, okay, 1 + 1 + 1. It's just very systematic and it's beautifully explained. So talk us through, Sandy, talk us through your journey. How did you end up being a money mindset, mentor?
Well, it started in the strangest ways. They always say your biggest struggle can become your biggest gift. And I think that's definitely what happened for me. So the short story. So I met a boy in high school and we started going out and we went out for about 10 or 11 years and we eventually got married. And I had a 3-year-old and a 6-month-old at the time. And what had happened during that journey was I loved sewing. And because I live down by the ocean, I live on the beautiful Sunshine Coast in Queensland, Australia. And I just decided I wanted to make my own bikinis. And I started doing that. And then other people said, oh, I love them. Would you make me a pair? So I started making bikinis. And then it was kind of the introduction of the aerobic era. And I made myself a leotard because at the time, the only thing you could buy were those really boring ones with the little black cap sleeves and really low leg. So I bought some bright lycra and I made myself a leotard and then someone else wanted one. And before I knew it, I actually had a small business. So I was buying fabric down at the local discount store, coming home into my garage, sewing up all these leotards and swimwear. And then I would just sell it. Sometimes at the local flea market, I would sometimes open a store that if there was an empty store down on the Esplanade, and I would sell over summer and then I'd close the rest of the year and so. And that business got bigger and bigger. But because I had no clue what I was doing when it came to business, I just, what I would do is the money would come in and we would use that money to buy furniture and go on a holiday and put in a swimming pool. And I never put that money back into the business. And so when my husband and I ended up splitting up, which was when my youngest was 6 months old, suddenly that hobby business had to be a real business. It had to be my only income and it didn't work. And I ended up $100,000 in debt and on welfare. And at the time, welfare was around $15,000 a year, which most people understand US dollars. So that's around $7,500 US dollars a year. So wow. you don't get ahead with that. It was just, it was a really, really challenging time in my life because if anyone has ever had debt, like that's bad enough. It's bad enough having huge debt, but then only bringing in $15,000 a year. Every single decision in my life revolved around money. Everything was about how I didn't have any. Just little things. My kids would love to, because I would make their lunches every day, but every now and again, a thing called tuck shop in Australia, like buying your lunch at school is a really big deal. And the kids, wanting to go and have tuck shop every now and again, I'd have to say no. If we were down the street and they say, Mum, can have an ice cream, it had to be no. Like it was always no. We never had any money. It was so stressful. And I was, think about it, $100,000 in debt and on welfare and really, really struggling. And it was just a really scary time in my life because I thought, how am I ever going to get out of this debt? Like, what do I do? Even if I get a job, in my mind, I couldn't see how much money I would have to make to then be able to get out of debt. So it was really, really scary.
How did you get 100,000 debt?
What's that?
How did he get into the 100,000 debt?
Well, the business that I was growing, I grew an overdraft, and so I had, money that I owed there, and then the money that I got from splitting up with my husband, I think I got about $160,000. So I thought I was rich, but then I put some money into the shares, into the stock market, and I lost it. I bought a property and I sold it and I lost money. I started a network marketing company and it ended up going bust and I lost money. I like every single thing I did, I lost money. Like I just lost money until I just had no money, was in debt and like really, really, really struggling. And it was a horrible time to be a mum because I felt like I was such a crummy mummy. I was always yelling at my kids because I was so stressed. But very, very luckily, I discovered the law of attraction. And I'd already been into positive thinking. So I loved thinking positively, but I didn't realize that even though I was thinking positively, most of the time I was feeling negatively. So I was thinking positive, feeling negative.
Yeah.
And when I discovered the law of attraction, I realized that I needed to not only think positive, I needed to feel positive because what you think and you feel creates your actions. And when you combine all three, that's what becomes your life.
You
And
have
so,
to be all three, yeah, of course.
yeah, I'm huge. I mean, that's the number one thing I teach now. You got to align body, mind, and spirit. There's no point thinking, really positively and then feeling negative, or feeling really positive and thinking negative, or taking no actions at all. It's like you've got to align body, mind, and spirit, thoughts, feelings, and actions. And when you do that, then you're able to actually move forward. Then you're able to actually make change. And that's what happened for me. So when I discovered the law of attraction, I just fell in love with it. I was like beside myself with joy because suddenly I realized that what I thought about, what I focused on, not just with my mind, but with my feelings, my emotions, that then allowed me to attract to me what I wanted. That allowed me not just on a woo-woo level, but on a scientific level, my brain was suddenly wired to see things in the world that were going to bring me the experiences and the opportunities and the situations and the circumstances to allow my life to become what I wanted it to be. So I was just so excited. And I just fell in love with the law of attraction and I just immersed myself in it. And I used to do visualizations and I still do. Visualizations are my most favorite thing. But bit by bit, things began to change and, the most amazing, yeah.
How did you find the law of attraction? There's always a journey to it as well. So what
Yes. Okay. So I was really stuck. I was really like, what am I going to do? How am I going to change my life? And someone told me about, it was like a psychologist or career counselor kind of thing, all tied into one. And I went along to see this guy and he got me to lay down. And I think he was hypnotizing me. I'm not really sure, but it got me to lay down and think about my life and took me through this process. And at the end of it, he said, what came up for you? And I said, well, the only thing I really love is personal development. And he said, well, could you see yourself doing something? I said, no way. I said, the only two things that you do in personal development, in my mind, you write a book or you speak to people. And there's no way I'm doing either of those things because the idea of speaking to people was beyond my comprehension. Like I was so freaked out about the idea of speaking in front of people. I remember going to a seminar that was based on the law of attraction. It was part of a product that I was selling at the time. And there was a huge seminar and I'm right up the front. I tend to be right up the front because I just don't like all the distractions. So I'm right up the front. And after each module that they would teach us, they would then say, has anyone got any questions or any insights? For some obscure reason, I raised my hand and they said, yes, Sandy. And so I had to stand up and I had to ask my question. And at the end of it, I sat down and I was shaking so much. Just the fact that I spoke in front of a crowd, even though I wasn't even facing them, I was only facing the person in front of me. I shook and I missed the entire next module, which went for about 45 minutes because I was so out of my body and just freaked out and my nervous system was completely shot. So, the idea of me speaking to people just seemed completely, it just wasn't going to happen. So, but funnily enough, a week after that, I saw this tiny little ad. It was only an inch by an inch in the local paper, and some words jumped out at me. One was personal development. The other was, it said strong work ethic, which I love the idea. And then it said make money. And it was like, So I looked into it, and that really was the journey toward changing everything, because that was the thing that completely transformed who I was, which then enabled my entire life to transform. But, that's the thing. I would never have been open to anything like that, except that I had been to this guy who had said, what jumps out for you? And it was funny, that wasn't the only ad I saw. I actually saw another ad that was about personal development, and I applied for that, and I got that too. So it was like really strange that, it's not really strange. Now I understand how it works. But back then it was like, oh my gosh, how amazing. What a coincidence. How could this happen? But this is the thing that I teach people now. When you tell your mind what is important, so it's not just the woo-woo, it's not just law of attraction, but when you tell your mind what is important, it starts to filter in those things. Your conscious becomes aware. Whereas when you're just living life and not having any focus and not kind of, imprinting into your brain what is really important to you, you just take everything in, the good, the bad, the ugly, and then your life becomes the good, the bad, and the ugly. You're just creating whatever happens by chance. Whereas when you stop and take time to say to your mind, and think about what it is you truly desire, and you do that often enough, you start to rewire your mind, and your reticular activating system at the base of your skull then starts to filter in those things that are important to you, and you begin to see them. Just like I did in that same week, 2 ads for personal development, and they were, I don't know what the other one was, but the one that I went with was based on the law of attraction. So it really is amazing how it works, and you've just got to really, and this is the thing I teach over and over again, you just got to really focus on what you want, because up until that point, all I had done was focus on my debt, how I had no money, how I was struggling, how I was never going to change things, how what a victim I was, how come he did this to me, and how come that happened. Whereas when I discovered the law of attraction, I realized, hang on a minute, that's all I'm focusing on. That's all I'm creating. I need to switch my focus. So yeah, that's a short story.
I love that story. And I do believe that the universe lines things up for you at the right time when you're ready for it. And sometimes it is when your back is up against the wall. Or I said one of the, in my book, I talked about, one of the laws of universe. You need to get to a point where you really are out of options. Like everything else is, you cast the burden over to the, to universal energy. That's when miracles form. Because until then, you're causing all the resistance, the friction, because you're trying. It's only when you let go and like, what, I've done everything I can.
Yeah, exactly.
I've done everything. You take over. I'm done. And sometimes you do this unconsciously. And
exactly.
Consciously, when you obviously when you train up, then oh, okay, I don't have to try so hard. I don't have to hustle. That's why I don't believe in the hustling culture. I think that's a sure shot route to burnout.
I agree.
In inspired action, and exactly your journey shows that when you just, I'm done. Tell me what to do, and when you let go, that's when the universe lines things up, and that's why I wanted to hear your story. What a beautiful story. So am I to understand that was a person development in teaching law of attraction company? Is that it?
That was my first introduction to the law of attraction. So until then, I'd been, as I said, very into positive thinking, but I'd never heard of the law of attraction. And when I first heard about it, my mind was blown, because I think until you understand the law of attraction, you do think you're just this person trying to do it all on yourself, and you're trying to make it all happen. You're trying to, control everything. But when you understand the law of attraction, you suddenly realize the universe is on your side, and you just have to kind of align your body, mind, and spirit, and then magic can happen. And this is the thing that I teach over and over. So, in my journey, I went from that place of really struggling to understanding the law of attraction to things starting to turn around, and eventually became a millionaire. And I went from welfare to millionaire, and I kind of feel like how did that happen? Like, how did that happen? It's like one of those, stories you hear about happening to other people, but it happened to me. And as you say, I think for me, I hit rock bottom. And being at rock bottom, it was like, that's when the law of attraction came into my life. And it was such a sweet relief rather than focusing on how my life actually was. Pardon me. Rather than focusing on how my life actually was and all the debt that I had and all the stress and all the struggle, instead focusing on, oh, imagine owning my own home. Imagine not actually having to rent and then being told the rent is going up, or that you have to move out, or that you're not allowed to put a picture on the wall, or you're not allowed to paint anything. Like, imagine having my own house that I live in that's all mine, and I can do whatever I want, and I can live here forever. And, just imagining those things just made me feel so amazing, so incredible. So I spent so much time focusing on what I really wanted. Imagine having a car that instead of when it rained, it leaked so much that a plant would grow in the back seat. Like, imagine having a car that actually, was beautiful and clean and went all the time. Just spending my time in that place just made me feel so excited, so alive that, because I had hit rock bottom, putting myself in that place of thinking about all the things that I wanted to do and the travel that I wanted, and being able to go to gym classes or being able to go to meditation classes or go on a health retreat, focusing on all that just made me feel so good that I spent a lot of time in that place. And the great thing is, every moment that I spent in that place was aligning my body, mind, and spirit, was allowing me to think about what I truly wanted. It was allowing me to feel as if I already had it in my life and feel so excited and happy and grateful. And then it allowed me to take the actions I needed to take to actually create that in my world.
Wonderful. And so what happened? So you joined this person development company, and I suppose that was some sort of affiliate marketing, I understand.
Yeah, it was network marketing. So it was direct sales. So it was a course, had a home study course, had a couple of seminars, and I started telling people about this. And it was really funny because I remember going to a seminar for this business, and one of the things we had to do was write out our ideal day. Write out what we're doing at the time. Like, what do? We get up in the morning and I do a bit of yoga and I go for a run, and then I go down the beach, and then I come back and I take the kids to school, and then I talk to people about personal development. I talk to people about the course. I listen to some of the material, and that was actually the ideal day I'd written out months before when I had no money. And it was like, when you focus on something, you can create it. And I was just so amazed about that. But so the course was all about personal development and all about law of attraction. So I started selling that. But then and I made more money in a month than I'd made in my entire year. Like, it was just blowing my mind. But then I think it was probably a year or two, probably 2 years or so into that, the person who owned the global marketing rights to that course had a dispute with the printer. They said, you didn't print this right. We're not paying the bill. And they said, you've got to print it again. And the printer said, well, we're not printing it again until you pay this bill first. And so they got into this dispute. And so bit by bit, the product dried up. We had no product to sell. And in direct sales, you know that if you don't have a product, you don't have a business. And it just disappeared. And suddenly that abundance that I was attracting and creating and living in my life, it suddenly just went away. And so I was struggling again. I just didn't know what to do. And I remember going to a seminar, because I love going to seminars, finding out about this thing called coaching. And I thought, oh my gosh, that sounds like something I could do. Like, I could work from home, which I loved because I'm such an introvert. I could work from home, could do it, over the phone, and there's no ceiling on how much you make, and it's the personal development industry. So I borrowed some money and went through coach training. And what I did with that was I brought law of attraction into my coaching sessions, and my clients loved it. And I started group coaching very quickly because I realized I am not good one-on-one in that. Like, having lots of clients throughout the week, like, I'm too disorganized for that. It just didn't work. So having group coaching, one session once a week with about 20 or 30 people. That worked beautifully. So I basically brought law of attraction into my coaching sessions. I brought law of attraction into my business, and it just took off. And, it was really, really exciting. And that was the first step. But then I started to go through this kind of dark night of the soul. It's like, well, what am I doing? Who am I to be coaching people? Because I was teaching about the law of attraction, but I was thinking, who am I? Like, I haven't created any major success.
It attacks everyone. I don't think there's anyone that's scared. It doesn't matter. By the way, if you're listening to this right now and you think that, people like Dwayne Johnson and Michael B. Jordan or all these rock stars don't suffer from it, you'd be surprised. They may not talk about it as much, but this imposter syndrome attacks everyone, and sometimes at the most obscure times as well. But yeah, that's what happened.
I know. I was just completely freaked out. And so then I actually stopped doing the thing that was making me money, which was coaching. And I started just doing live teleseminars. This is before actual webinars. So doing live teleseminars, interviewing other millionaires, because I just felt like, who am I? It was completely ridiculous. So I started doing that. But then I don't know why. I must have just got through that time and thought, you know what else can I do? I enjoy coaching. I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy inspiring people. I enjoy telling other people, everything that I've learned and seeing the change that it makes in their life. And I kind of swung back around to coaching, and oh my gosh, am I so glad I did, because suddenly my coaching business started to really take off, and then the group coaching took off even more. And then I started creating online courses and programs and seminars. And then and then it was really funny because my accountant came to me and said, Sandy, I know you had some success in direct sales previously. I am going into something and I think you'd be a really good fit. I'd love to, do it with you. It's direct sales. And my logical mind said, no, don't do it. You don't like direct sales. You don't like talking to people and trying to sell to them. Don't do it. But then part of me thought, I'll go and see what she's talking about. Anyway, we went along and she said, Sandy, I don't want you don't have to buy anything, because at the time I didn't have any money to buy anything anyway. You don't have to buy anything. I'll buy the course. We'll go through it. I've got clients and I'll give them to you. You just talk to them. And I thought, that could be all right. That it'll bring me a bit of money. Why not? So I started doing that. And then within I think it was probably, and that started making really good money. Like, we were making great money. That course was actually based on like a wealth creation education. And the great thing about that was it kind of freed me up, because money was coming in. And when you don't have any money, you feel very constricted. And so you don't come up with ideas. You don't take any actions, because you're kind of filled with fear. So I was able to just kind of relax because money was coming in. And then one morning I woke up with this name, Wildly Wealthy Women, in my head. And I just jumped online and registered the domain name. Didn't have any clue what I was going to do with it, but just thought, this is a really cool name, registered it. And then a few months later, we were both at a seminar it was actually in the US, in Arizona. And I said to her, I've got this idea for a program. So, we're marketing this wealth creation program. And she was not only an accountant, she was a taxation expert and what else, financial advisor, and all what I like to call the boring things around money. And I was just the mindset. And I said to her, I think that we should start a program where, yes, we give women this course, but we also then have weekly live calls where they can ask you questions, because I knew that the learning of the practical only worked for me when I could ask questions of someone. And I was really lucky that I was learning the practical through the course, but being able to ask her questions. And so I thought, we need to have this program where women come together every week and they can ask questions, and so they can create the success that they want so much quicker. And this was really only just on a practical level. So I launched Wildly Wealthy Women, just an idea. And honestly, within probably 3 months, made close to $2 million.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
we had so many women just love the idea. And I said, we'll have Wildly Wealthy Women's Wicked Weekends where we get together, 3 times a year and we learn all the practical and the mindset, and we'll do yoga and we'll do beach walks and we'll do meditation. And this was back in 2000 and I think it was 2003. So this was one of the, if not the first women's only mentoring program in the world. So women loved it. They just loved it. And so from there, everything really changed. And, I just feel so blessed and so lucky. And so that's how I ended up being a money mentor. I've just, basically as soon as I discovered the law of attraction, I loved it to death. I just fell in love with everything about it and just wanted to share it with people. And over the years, I've created so many of my own processes and exercises and things that, basically that I used myself to go from welfare to millionaire. And then I wrote a book in 2004 called How to Be Wildly Wealthy Fast. And yeah, I've been teaching law of attraction and money manifesting ever since then.
Yeah, that's the book I bought. I came across it just by pure coincidence. And the name was familiar to me because I know we had you booked, or at some point we were going to get you booked. And I thought, oh, this is interesting. And I ended up buying it. And so actually, for those who do have this on YouTube, you can say, this is the book. So
and this is the new one. I think I'm probably back to front, but this is the new one.
Okay. So
new edition. We've got the very old edition.
We've got the first iteration and we've got the new one.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. So do you want to quickly run us by what kind of, do you actually focus just on mindset, or do you actually go through some modalities like EFT or energy tools? What's your main focus in terms of helping people change their mindset?
Yeah, great question. So obviously mindset is number one, because until you change your mindset, nothing changes. But to do that, we do go through different modalities. So we do a little bit of tapping. I've done this certification in a thing called the energy codes. And so we bring that into the work. And that's really next level. That's really taking things, really tapping into the quantum field and allowing change to happen. So I'm able to hold that space. And also the exciting thing is, I don't know if anyone knows about human design, but I'm a manifester. And a manifester is someone that not only obviously can do certain things in their own life, but as a manifester, everyone who comes into my sphere, into my community, who becomes connected to me, becomes better at manifesting or bringing things into their world. And that, when I found that out, that excited me so much, because it's like, well, I feel like I'm absolutely living my purpose. So one of the main things we do, as I said, I think at the very start, was we're very focused on aligning body, mind, and spirit. Very focused on understanding that, yes, your mind and how you think, we really get into that. We do a lot of work around rewiring the mind. I've got a lot of subliminal audios and visualizations that are part of the program. So that the thing I love about subliminals, it happens to work on a subconscious level, and you can just go about your business and you're rewiring your brain. So we do a lot of work on the mind, and then obviously the thoughts, what you're thinking, releasing everything that's not serving you. And then the feelings, we do a lot. And this is why in the program that I have, we really do deep dive into how you're feeling. So we, as I said, let go of things that aren't serving you, but really spend a lot of time. I've got dozens and dozens of visualizations, which really get people into the feeling place. The thing I loved about visualizations when I was $100,000 in debt was I felt I was being transported to a whole new life, closing my eyes and imagining that beautiful life. And so I create them for my students so that they've got lots of different scenarios to listen to, making $500,000 in a year, being a millionaire, living in their dream house, having their dream life. So all those things. And then actions. So, we talk about taking inspired action and how to, because I think too many people, like, for instance, if I'd come up with that idea for Wildly Wealthy Women and not gone online and registered the domain name in that moment, what people don't understand is that thought form has gone out into the quantum field. And if I don't take action on it, someone else will tap into it and come up with that name and go online and register it and make their millions instead. So I'm really big on teaching my students how to take how to recognize inspired action and how to take that inspired action so that the universe can create its magic.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, on that note, we're going to wrap up. So, do you have any parting, tips or advice for people who may be listening to you? And there could be, I mean, most of our audience tends to be, because I'm from the corporate background, I tend to attract similar audience, people who are in the corporate sector or who've transitioned over or transitioning over, one of the three categories. Any tips for somebody who thinks, well, okay, Sandy, you've done it, but I don't know if I can. And I tend to find people who are in the corporate sector tend to have a lot of debt because they've just got used to debt. It's either used to be student debt, then it becomes a mortgage and cars and lifestyle, and debt seems to follow them throughout their life. And sometimes the comment is, can I ever get rid of it? And it doesn't matter about the money you make, because debt doesn't really matter how much money you make. You have debt because of other issues. So any tips at all as parting comments?
Yeah, absolutely. So I always say to people, just understand that, I was $100,000 in debt and on welfare. Okay. So, and I dropped out of school in grade 11. I didn't even finish high school. I had no connections. I had nobody I knew with money. I had no skills. So a lot of time people in corporate, they've worked at a certain job and they don't think that they've got they don't know what they can bring to the table. They don't know how they can make any money. But I had no skills whatsoever, like nothing. My main thing that I was good at was going down the beach and sunbaking. Like that was it. Going down the beach, that was my whole focus, because I came from one of Australia's coldest states and we moved to one of the warmest. And so suddenly I've got this beach and the sunshine and, beautiful blue sea and the white sand. And it was like, that was my whole focus. So I figure if me, who is $100,000 in debt and on welfare, no skills, no connections, no nothing, but by discovering the law of attraction and putting it into action and aligning body, mind, and spirit, and really like almost embracing it as if it was my job, not just something I did an affirmation in the morning and that's the end of it. Like I absolutely embraced it. I loved it and I lived it. If I've been able to transform my life and go from welfare to millionaire, then honestly, it's possible for anyone. If you really fall in love with the law of attraction and you really take action and you really just open yourself up to the possibilities, absolutely anything can happen. And when it comes to debt, I see it over and over again in my students that money miracles happen and they have debts and suddenly they're rung by the bank and the bank says, oh, look, we're forgiving that debt. We're releasing it. You don't owe it anymore. And it happens over and over. And my students are blown away. So I think the idea that people have debt can be overwhelming and can be scary. And the logical mind says, I'm never going to be able to get out of this debt. But just know that when you really allow the universe to step into your life and you really embrace it, what happens is money miracles and anything can happen. So just get excited about the future and the possibility, knowing that your life can change in an instant.
I love that. On that note, we will wrap up. Sandy, tell everybody, how can we connect with you? Where can we find you on the internet?
The best place to find me is at my website, wildlywealthy.com. And, I've actually put together a little money bundle that your students might like to kind of start to take them down that path of becoming more attractive to abundance. And they can go to wildlywealthyfree.com. And I've got some guided visualizations and abundance affirmations that they might like to listen to.
Wonderful. If you're listening to this episode on the podcast, then all the links that Sandy just mentioned will be in the show notes. And if you're watching us on the YouTube, then down below in the description section, we will have the links as well. Go check her out. She is one kick-ass lady and a very, very inspirational speaker. And her book is amazing too. As I can highly recommend it. I've got the first iteration, so if you go and buy the new one, you're bound to be impressed as well. Well, thank you so much for being such an amazing guest for us today, Sandy. We have to have you back on Money Talkies. We have to ask for more advice and so get some more help from you. But today, thank you so much for being a guest.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
And thank you for listening to me and Sandy today on Friday Feature. I will be back with another amazing guest on Friday Features and asking them how they change their life by changing their mindset. Until the next time we meet, this is Gull signing off. Take care and bye for now.